carried. So now we come to item 7, the Community Organisation Loan Scheme, Christchurch Squash Club. So let's bring staff to the table for any initial commentary and then to answer any questions. Is there anything you want to say by way of introduction, or should we go straight into questions?
I'm happy for you to go straight into questions.
Okay, so let's move to questions. So I've got Pauline and Jamie and Yanni.
Thank you. Is there any reason that they have not applied to other funders at the moment and it's only council? One would think things like furniture and stuff at the point would be perfect for some other funders. Like
If you go to places like Lotteries Commission and all the rest of it, they would have expected this funding to be put in place before the building is completed. As it's been pointed out by the club, that the club is near completion, which makes it difficult for people to go to Lotteries Foundation and everybody to get that sort of money. They prefer to have it in advance. So it's very difficult. We become a lender of last resort. Yep.
It's a timing thing. They're opening in July.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. James? All done? Yanni?
Yeah, thanks. I just wanted to check in terms of the funding. It just the DCs, we seem to have this issue where we don't do development agreements for community benefit, but I would have thought what we've heard over many years is a lack of indoor court space. So I just wondered through the DC's process, I know that there's been a reduction and we've worked that through to some extent, but still 70 grand for DC seems really high. And I just wondered whether we'd thought about a development agreement that would ensure, possibly some days for community access, for example, for free, so many days a year, for example, or on a certain day at a certain time, and as a trade-off for getting that kind of indoor space, court space.
Without fully understanding the discussions that the club's had with other council officials, from our understanding that the DCs have been heavily discounted since the original works was proposed, they may have been included in that calculation. I cannot confirm that situation, but they may have been considered.
So, I guess I see what they've presented to us and think that'll be a really fantastic facility. People will use it well. Giving a higher degree of loan, as has been requested, can you just help me understand, whether that would be possible, and if not, why you'd be concerned?
So the scope of this paper is to do with the community loan rather than the DC, so that would have to be looked at in another report. So our analysis of the information that was provided to us in the application was that there's uncertainty about the growth in membership, and we needed to give you guys a recommendation on what we felt could be repaid, and did our projections accordingly. Now there's been some information come to light regarding the change with squashways. That's new since our paperwork, so we'll leave that to you to assess the risk in providing a potentially higher loan than the staff recommendation.
Right.
Len, do you want to add anything?
Yeah, the question is that the higher the value of the loan, the greater the risk of repayment or non-repayment. And it's a question about, do I come back in a year's time and say, hey, look, we need to renegotiate the loan with the squash club. We say we draw it at a level whereby we take historical information. Yes, it's based on an older facility. We understand that. We look at projections. This facility will hold national championships. There's no doubt about that. But there's nothing in the foreseeable future that's been organised. So these are the things that we'd anticipate would happen at this facility. Giving $100,000, we have got a less of a risk than giving $200,000 or $300,000.
Right, but I guess I'm just trying to find a solution, because I see it as being a really positive facility. Things like deferring the DCs over a period of time, or having some key milestones where we could underwrite, and then if things are going really well, we could, bring things forward.
I guess the community loan scheme is a mechanism like that, and that's why we're bringing it to you as councillors to consider.
Right.
Thank you. So now I've got Jimmy and then Glenn and then David. Okay. Jimmy.
The paragraph 4.14 and 4.15, regarding to the quoted payment, That's based on their members, how many members? In here, your particular quarterly payment is $3,118 per year. That's how many members you estimate?
The current membership, I don't actually have in front of me. 262 is the current membership of the club.
Yeah, currently, yeah, but because if we review the 4.17, you particular emphasize, their membership increased, it's a 2/3 rather than, the 4 month. But they mentioned 2022 is 800 members, but you estimate how many?
Yeah, so our estimate, based on the recommended amount, is a 2/3 increase compared to that in the cash flows of the squash club.
Yes.
So we do the maths from 262, they're saying up to 800, we're saying up to approximately 600. But that maths I would want to get my calculator out.
So
to feel
they
more confident.
can afford pay is 6,200 only per year. They can afford, am I right?
Yeah.
But if they can increase the 800 members, so how much percentage they can afford to pay?
Yeah, well, if they hit their targets that they presented in front of us, according to their projections, they would pay the 300,000, assuming they hit those membership targets.
Yeah, I mean, the key when reviewing this, the analysis, and that's what's reiterated in the conversation that they presented today. There's a huge opportunity for growth in the youth market. So therefore, if you can get those interactive games which go through, yep. But then the question is that they're the lowest payers of fees. So therefore, they have to turn into full members before, or you're going to get the benefit. And therefore, there's an emphasis on corporate membership and the adult membership. That's the sort of growth that is quite aggressive, we feel. And yes, it would support the request over a longer period, but it's trying to put that in play is if you don't get it, what happens?
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. So now I've got Glenn and then David. Glenn.
Okay, thank you. As it says in 4.17.1 in the report, page 52, what lies at the base of this is that it's predicated on the club maximising the forecast growth. So I can't see any analysis, I can't see any actual specific data over forecast growth. All I have is a model, apparently, about the increase of the Devoy Centre in Tauranga. I can't see any local data. I don't see any conservative data over which to then move to, let alone 200,000. So are you able to
The club
provide
did provide that data in their
Okay.
application, but we haven't taken that all through in detail for yourselves, and maybe
Right.
we could have.
Yeah.
But they did put some of that up on the screen, albeit briefly, in their presentation, and that was
Yeah.
to do with the analysis of the population base in Christchurch, where people live, schools, etc., and then the growth at the Devoy Centre in Tauranga that they very much observed over the years. It was built in about 2011, that as new courts were put on, the growth came with it. It was sort of a build it and they'll come kind of growth, and
Yeah,
that's what their
that's-
projections were based on.
is both exciting and nerve-wracking.
Indeed.
But this is your job as staff, so you feel that's sufficient, robust data by which to make a decision
This is the reason why we've trained it back to 100,000.
to 100?
100,000.
And you're staying with 100?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Great, thank you. And David.
Thank you. I just note in your report you've included a schedule of the loan scheme, and one of the applicants has a balance greater than the amount we've loaned. How did that happen?
Say again?
One of the applicants listed in the community loan scheme has a current balance that's greater than the amount they borrowed.
Order, that's
Yeah, I
not
mean, this is,
relevant to this.
This is information that's in the paper, isn't it?
Yeah, no, that's a really well
Paper, but
observed
it's separate.
point there, David. I see now that we have an error under one of the applicants there because I haven't included their second loan that they received. So I've only put they received 2 loans.
Well, the
only
table probably
the
doesn't
first is
represent it well then.
All right, maybe we could get circulated just by way of a memo, the correct information as it should have appeared. I mean, it's not relevant to the substantive matter, but it is background which is in the paper.
Yep.
If there's a correction that needs to be circulated, I think that would be helpful.
will do.
Thank you. All right, so we're done with questions. Do I have a mover? Tim? Right, okay, so do we have wording for that alternate motion? Okay, so this is the same as the original recommendation, but with a different figure. Approve a loan of 200,000. All right. Do we have a seconder for that, Sarah? Thank you. Okay, so now moving into debate. Is there any debate on this? All right. So Yanni, Phil, and James, and then Tim. I'll come to you at the end. Yep. So Yanni.
Yeah, like I'm really supportive of increasing the quantum of the loan. I think for a number of groups who have been through a fairly long process post-earthquake, it's unfortunate that the normal funding that we could have applied through the Mayoral Relief Fund is no longer available. So many of these groups, I mean, there's other groups as well that I'm aware of that would actually have qualified for that to deal with the post-earthquake rebuilds, but because of the length of time taken, there's no money left. So I actually think it's great that a group has come and said, look, we'd like a loan to help us do our facility. Often we get groups saying, just fund us fully or give us, millions of dollars. So actually, I've got no doubt in my mind that this will be a very successful facility. I think we've heard particularly around some of the recent changes that are going to occur. And I think this is really a good use of this funding. And as long as we work with them over just ensuring that the commitments can be met, then I have no qualms about doing this. So I just think this is a fantastic facility. We want people being healthy and recreating. This is a facility that will be world class, and I think it'll be a real asset for our city, and we should do what we can to support it.
Thank you. Phil?
Thank you, Chair. I'm also very supportive of the increase to 200,000. This club has proved, in fact, they've got the organisational skills and they've brought the people with them. There are a lot of schools already involved. I think it's a good example of where, while in some respects in terms of the loan, an analogy with some sports might be that we're taking a punt. In fact, it's a very carefully directed hit, this one, in my view. When we talk about our cycleways, we say build them and they'll come. Of course the kids came. And this work has already begun. So, I just think other loans to other sports actually have shown generally an increase in their participation. Overall, those loans have paid off. This application is well presented, well organised, and certainly will be a winning exception, a winner in my view.
Thank you. James?
If you would you prefer, Mr. Chair, that if you were preferred a different figure, that you'd essentially just foreshadow the motion?
If you wanted to foreshadow a motion in the event that this is not carried.
My feeling is that would be tidier if I just foreshadowed it with the
please
staff
do.
recommendation.
If that's what you're wanting to do, then please do.
Yeah. Okay. Well, then I'll signal that I'll foreshadow the motion with what the staff recommendation is, and for $100,000, and just to briefly speak to it. As far as it goes with providing $200,000, make no mistake about it. I think that the presentation that we saw was excellent. I think the facility that's proposed is excellent. I think that the people that they have associated with it are excellent as well. I would love to increase that quantum, but a higher loan equals a higher risk. So we have staff employed who want positive things to happen in our community. That's the reason why they work for our organisation. But fundamentally, they are employed to recommend a figure that they believe balances the benefit to the community with also the risk to the ratepayers. We have a staff recommendation. That figure wasn't plucked from the sky. There was rationale around it. and I think we need to back our staff's judgment and their calculations on it. If not, I wouldn't want to be in a position where you just rely on any person that's applying for a loan to supply you their figures and then just go from them. I'm not saying that their figures are wrong, because I think that they probably are quite achievable. Though in saying that, I think it's safer when we're custodians of the community's or the ratepayers' dollars to err on the side of caution. So there is science, rationale, good thinking around why staff have recommended what they have recommended. So I'll foreshadow the motion in favour of the staff recommendation of 100,000.
Thank you. I've now got Dion and then Anne. Dion.
Yeah, I'm a little bit like Jamie here, and thanks to the team who have come in and spoken to us, and there is no doubt that this will be an amazing facility for the community. But from my point of view, I've heard, I've been open-minded in the decision here, listened to the conversations, and I agree with the staff have done a lot more work than I've done sitting around the table, looking at the numbers and what this loan balances on the objectives of why we set this thing up. So I back the staff on what they're saying, and the loan that we're providing will give certainty to the market, where we've got record low interest rates into the market. So I would hope that by giving this loan if we gave a loan of $100,000, it would definitely give confidence to other tier lenders out there who are offering probably lower interest rates than what we're offering here, to actually give them the balance of any shortfall that they may need. So from that point of view, I just need to be fiscally responsible and actually listen to what the staff have said, and I will back the foreshadowed motion.
Thank you. Anne.
I'll be supporting the increase to 200,000, because I think that our job is to grow strong communities and to grow active citizens, and this is what this is all about. I think, yes, there is a wee bit of a risk involved here, but given the fact that there are 9 schools around this facility, and the Squash Club will be offering free school sessions, I think that's a fantastic community service, and it also means that they're building future users of the facility and future fees. So I believe this is a risk worth taking. It ticks all the boxes that we as a council want to achieve in our community, and I think we need to support it. I do think it brings up the whole discussion about DCs and community facilities, and I think we need to have that discussion. At the moment, it doesn't seem very clear or fair in the way we deal with those things, so I'd like to continue that discussion going forward. So very supportive of giving this extra resource to this great group. Thank you.
Thank you. Glenn, Sarah, and then Jimmy. Glenn.
Okay, thank you. My particular appetite for risk over this particular application isn't overly high. So I'm really concerned that we have this scheme and that potentially, in some cases, some applicants could inadvertently be set up. So we all have different views on this. Mine is more inclined towards Jamie on this particular application. I don't have sufficient confidence to go anything beyond what is being recommended by the staff. I have questions over it, and so I will support 100,000 as per the recommendation, but the staff have brought us that figure for a reason. I'm not going to jump to 200 without sufficient membership projections and other data upon which to make that, to go with that.
Thank you. Sarah and then Jimmy.
Seriously, I can't believe that we are quibbling over $100,000, 100,000 or 200,000, and financial responsibility over this facility, which we know will get daily use by community members to increase activity levels when we know that they're dropping off, to increase people's mental health and wellbeing and community connectedness, when we're not querying in quite as much detail the spend of $500 million on a larger facility that we know will make a loss every year and that we will have to subsidise for other sports. Yes, this facility will be owned by someone else, but it's going to have massive community outcomes for that community and for the people who play squash in Christchurch. And the stadium is $500 million and we're not saying, oh, 100,000 here, 100,000 there, over that one, when we know it's going to make a loss and we're going to be subsidising it forever. Can't believe we're quibbling over it. I think $200,000 makes sense. I'd have been happy with 3.
Thank you. Jimmy.
First one, if we review the community outcome, particularly the one category, strong community, particularly emphasize, highlight the safe and the healthy community, and also celebration our identity through arts, culture, heritage, and the sport. But this one is long. This one is not the council grant funding to the community, and also this not just grant funding to the private sector. This is Canterbury Squash Club. At the moment, they have a vision, they have a view. They would like to, to build up the new facility. As a council, actually, they comply with our community outcome. We cannot just mention, oh, there's 100K, but still they are eligible to feedback to us. There's a loan, and they will feedback the capital plus those interest. At the moment, they have a goal. Actually, everything has the risk, etc. But the community outcome is very important. Particular, the Christchurch, we did have the 2 couple of the kind of earthquake and also mosque attack. We need to more working together with the community. How to can help them to achieve the goal. So I think even a little bit of risk. Council, we can take this risk. Particular, this is long. It's not the funding.
Ref.
Yeah, just a brief comment following on from, I think, points Yanni and Anne were making, that actually we don't have to build all the facilities that the community uses, and we don't yet seem to have a really good framework for working out where to put the cash. We've spent billions, obviously, on the facilities rebuild. We've made grants, we've made some loans. Sometimes the loans have been difficult for community groups to support, so that's, then they turn into grants in the end. We've done some private investing through the adventure park. We've done some planning changes for the Yaldhurst Sports Park, but we don't yet seem to have a really good plan about where we want community sports facilities and recreation facilities, and where it makes more sense for us to just say, here's a capital grant, away you go, or to build it and own it and operate it. So I think this really sits within that facilities plan, which we haven't quite seen yet. So look, I'm happy to support this. I would have supported either one, but I'm happy to support the larger one. We need to support facilities like this, but I think we need a better way of actually working out where we put the dollar and how we support community groups to develop their own facilities, which actually meet the outcomes that we're looking for.
Thank you. David.
Yes, thank you. I'm a little in the supporting the resolution as up there. And the other thing that's been raised, I think Anne raised it a few moments ago, with not-for-profit organisations that incur large development costs in their projects. I think that in itself is one of the most urgent things we need to review, where we have a number of organisations in the city that are providing recreation facilities that the council wouldn't otherwise provide, and at the same time we're whacking them hugely in DCs. And that's a detriment to actually getting going as well. So I'm happy to support this resolution, and I'm also signalling I think that it's time this council had a good look at how we charge development contributions to not-for-profit organisations that are providing facilities for this city that we are not otherwise building.
Thank you. Mike, and then I'll say something and then we'll come to Tim to close the debate.
Thanks.
Mike.
Just very quickly, I support the 200,000. I would have gone up to 300. This is a loan. It's not a grant, and I think if we look throughout our city, one thing that is we are struggling with is actually the mental well-being of a lot of our young children, and what we do know is sport actually really does help. And so therefore, if we've got the ability to actually help in that regards, then we need to do so, and this is a perfect opportunity to do it.
I would tend to agree with most of what's been said. I mean, it's interesting that the debate has been not so much around whether we give this loan as to, the substantive debate really has been around the quantum that we provide. I think some good points have been made around the provision of facilities and whose responsibility is to provide those facilities, and whether in fact there are situations where we should be looking at a grant rather than a loan as a way of supporting the community outcomes that we want. But what we've got in front of us today, as I see it, is an opportunity to give some certainty and some assistance to a facility which will have significant community outcomes, significant outcomes for youth, significant outcomes for health and recreation, more people more active more often. And certainly some of what we saw in the presentation suggests that there are some very innovative and exciting ways of getting more people more active more often through this facility. Now, we've had good representatives from a good organisation sit in front of us this morning and tell us that they would ideally like a loan of 300,000. I don't believe that people would be sitting in front of us asking for that if they didn't have the confidence to be able to repay such a loan. What we've reached is in some ways a compromise position between the staff recommendation and what has been asked for. It certainly represents an increase on the staff recommendation, but then we've heard that there are some other matters that we now know, such as the closing of squashways, that would quite possibly have an impact on the membership and usage of the new facility, and therefore the escalation in membership numbers and the resulting increased confidence in the ability to pay to that higher amount. What we've got in front of us really is a decision which is some elevated risk around the 200,000 rather than 100,000. I believe we've heard some good reasons why we should look positively at that elevated risk, and some significant community outcomes. So I'm certainly very happy to support the 200,000 that's in front of us, and I think we're very fortunate to have the ability to support contributing by way of a loan, not a grant, so this will be repaid to a facility which is going to have significant value to our community. So I thank the people involved for the opportunity to do this, and certainly support the 200,000. Tim, I'll now come to you to close the debate.
Thank you very much, Andrew. Look, first of all, I want to thank the squash guys. This is an absolutely outstanding facility. Your vision and your hard work cannot be underestimated. And I think when you're talking about, or we're as an organisation talking about what's predicted, what's going to be booked, we've got nothing nationally. I can't stress how much these guys have worked on, focused on getting this done. They haven't had time to go out and hunt nationally for events coming here or internationally. It's been focused on getting the job done. We have an organisation called Christchurch NZ whose job it is to bring things here. So once this facility is up and running, I would imagine that they will be contacting vice versa and looking at bringing things in, because what no one has talked about here is that our Metro Sports facility, one of the key things for that was positive economic benefit, bringing events of national significance and importance to this city to get outside money in, and that is what true economic benefit is. This facility is an absolute leader in this country, the vision of these guys, and it will attract national and hopefully international. That takes work. Once this is up and running, that's what they will be doing with our own organisation. So if they had built like for like, I would imagine that they wouldn't be here. And you saw those amazing screens, they wouldn't be there. We would have the normal, and I do apologise, the bland old squash court as you're known for 20 or 30 years. But technology, the development of technology, thank you, Jamie, you've had your moment, the development is exponential. No, I thought you were interrupting. Sorry, well, you have now, but it's okay. So what we have in front of us and what these guys are offering is absolutely amazing, not only for playing the game of squash, but opening up to those young people who have and are finding it difficulty socially and in our current environment to actually go and just get in touch with the sport and get in touch with something positive. This is right across the board of what this can do for our communities and our city. I'd really like you to support this. I would have liked to push for 300, but I know that there are concerns about the the ability to repay, but then when the paper was done, we didn't know about squashways. But, you know, we also, as councillors, got to remember, we are not a bank when it comes to loans. We will not strip the flesh off the bone to recover our money. We will work with community groups, as we have done across the board, and it's about social risk as much as it is economic risk. And I believe the social risk of not supporting this is far greater and outweighs the financial risk. Thank you.
So just to outline where we're at, we've got a motion on the table which has been moved, seconded and debated. In the event that this motion is lost, we would then move to the foreshadowed motion. So in terms of what we've got in front of us, all those in favour say aye. Aye. Against? No. And calling for a division, please. That's carried. Calling for a division, please.
Councillor Buck? Yes. Councillor Livingstone?
No.
Councillor East?
Yes.
Councillor Clearwater?
Yes.
Councillor Johansson?
Yes.
Councillor Swooks?
No.
Councillor Templeton?
Yes.
Councillor Mangy?
Yes.
Councillor Galloway?
Yes.
Councillor Chen?
Yes.
Councillor Davidson?
Yes.
Councillor Cotter?
Yes.
Councillor Turner?
Yes.
Councillor Scandrich?
Yes.
Councillor Goff?
No.
Carried 12-3.
Thank you very much. Thank you, and thanks again to the community organisation for coming along and presenting to us this morning. Thank you.
Thank you. And we actually do have a national event here this year. We applied for the World Masters, World Men's 2021, but we got beaten by that squash club in Tauranga. The last club in New Zealand that will soon be the second largest. So I brought this piece of timber. It's not a squash racket, but it's the floor from our court 4, which we're reinstating as an entranceway to bring some of the history from our old club.
Excellent. Thank you very much indeed.